In recent years, a troubling trend has emerged in Hollywood. The desire to label certain segments of the fandom as toxic when their reactions to a movie or franchise don't align with the expectations of studios or creators. Whenever a film underperforms at the box office or receives negative fan feedback, a common scapegoat becomes the fans themselves. Terms like toxic fandom are thrown around as to suggest it's the fans who refuse to embrace every new installment, reboot, or reinvention of a beloved franchise and are somehow malicious, ungrateful, or dangerous. But is it really fair to call the fans toxic simply for not supporting something they don't like? One of the most notable examples of Hollywood blaming toxic fandom for a failure is Ghostbusters 2016. While the movie underperformed at the box office and received heavy criticism online, much of the backlash was attributed to the supposed toxic masculinity and misogynistic attitudes within the fanbase, particularly aimed at the all-female cast. While there were certainly sexist comments made by the vocal minority, the broader criticisms came from fans who felt the movie lacked the charm, humor, and heart of the original 1984 classic. Instead of acknowledging the film's shortcomings, such as a weak script or unconvincing special effects and a story that failed to capture the spirit of Ghostbusters, Hollywood painted the entire fanbase as hostile, ignoring the genuine concerns of viewers who simply didn't connect with the new movie. Similarly, Star Wars The Last Jedi became another battleground where fans were labeled toxic for their negative reactions to the film. While some fans voiced their disappointment over specific character choices or narrative decisions like the portrayal of Luke Skywalker, many were immediately dismissed as being part of a toxic contingent resistant to change. However, much of the criticism wasn't rooted in blind fanboyism, but in valid concern about inconsistent storytelling, underdeveloped plot points, and divisive creative decisions. The film's subversion and expectations left so many longtime Star Wars fans feeling disconnected from the franchise they once beloved. Instead of addressing these issues, the conversation was deflected by blaming the fans, when in reality, the film's divisive nature was more of a result of storytelling choices than any toxic audience behavior. With Joker Folie 2, or Joker 2, now released and underperforming at the box office, some have begun labeling the fans who criticize the film as toxic. Oh, we know that old tactic, but before we start today's video, hit that thumbs up button, hit share, and subscribe for more world-class content.
The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
Following the success of Joker in 2019, many expected the sequel to replicate its gritty, character-driven storytelling. However, with the film's unexpected musical elements and tonal shift, a significant portion of the fanbase is expressing disappointment. Rather than acknowledging these creative decisions as a root cause of the backlash, some voices in the media are quick to brand these unhappy fans as toxic for not embracing the bold direction of the sequel. This narrative is wrong. Fandom Wire, the butthole of the internet, discusses this perceived failure of Joker Part 2 and its connection to the ongoing discourse about toxic fandom. They're trying to highlight parallels between Joker 2 and the Marvels, and how criticism directed at Lady Gaga is all sexist and misogynist and all this crap. But that's not the case. It's only the media like this, like Fandom Wire, like all these little garbage websites that have nothing to offer that make up articles all the time. It's them that are trying to get the needle moving, when in reality, that's not the case about Joker 2 at all. It's a lie to get people talking, it's a lie to get people reacting, and it hurts the movies that websites like Fandom Wire are paid to protect. The reality is, the fans aren't toxic for choosing not to watch Joker 2. They're consumers exercising their right to opt out, just as they would any other product that doesn't meet their expectations. When a movie fails to connect with its intended audience, it's easy for Hollywood to shift the blame onto toxic fans rather than examine the movie itself as to whether it was flawed or failed to resonate for a reason. This old tactic feels like a guilt trip designed to pressure audiences into watching a film and prove that they're not part of the problem. But fans don't owe Hollywood anything, namely their time or their money, and this attempt to guilt them into theaters simply doesn't work. Labeling an audience as toxic is not only dismissive, but it also misunderstands the relationship between the fans and the franchises. Fans are passionate, and they have every right to be critical, especially when they feel the stories aren't up to snuff. Some of Hollywood's biggest success stories have come from films that listened to fan criticism and adapted accordingly. One example of this is Sonic the Hedgehog. After the initial trailer was released, fans were outraged by Sonic's appearance. Instead of dismissing the criticism, the filmmakers delayed the release of the film and redesigned the character to be more faithful to the classic look. The result was a well-received film that spawned 2 sequels and a television series. Studios should listen to these voices instead of demonizing them. Franchises succeed over time by respecting their fanbase and giving them something to watch, not by guilt-tripping them into showing up. Though the film was bad, and it deserves to fail for many other reasons, thankfully Joker Part 2 is not a situation of fan-blaming, no matter how much the press wants you to think it is. films. Todd Phillips has been very clear that this film was a follow-up to the original Joker and was never intended to address toxic fandom, unlike many other Hollywood projects that seem to be pointing the fingers at us. Several films like Charlie's Angels, Terminator Dark Fate, The Last Duel, and Birds of Prey all blamed their underperformance on toxic fans, accusing them of rejecting female-led casts or progressive narratives. That's bullshit. In most cases, fans could criticize these movies for other reasons, such as weak storytelling, poor marketing, or the mishandling of beloved characters. By holding up their diversity shield and deflecting blame onto audiences rather than addressing these legitimate concerns, Hollywood alienated the very viewers they rely on for success. It seems Phillips and his team recognize that audiences are smart enough to engage with complex narratives without feeling personally attacked, but the media is looking for a scapegoat, even if the director says otherwise. When the first Joker was released, it sparked widespread conversation and controversy, with some pundits worrying that the film would appeal to the fringe elements of fandom, and that people were in danger from simply going to watch this film in theaters. It reflected the societal issues through the lens of the Joker. Well, not the Joker anymore, but that's a topic for another time. Audiences responded in droves not because they felt guilted, but because they were compelled, and it resonated with them. I'm a fan, you're a fan, and we all appreciated the raw, gritty portrayal of Arthur Fleck and his descent into madness, not because we saw ourselves, but because it was interesting to watch. Something so rare in today's films, and Joker 2 is one of them. Now yes, of course, Todd Phillips could have easily leaned into the toxic fandom discourse, especially given the polarizing reaction to the second film, but he didn't. In Joker 2, the focus remains on the character and his evolution, not attacking or labeling fans. And this distinction matters. If this is all honest, it shows that Phillips understands the difference between engaging with his audience and antagonizing them. Hollywood, on the other hand, could learn a thing or two from this approach. By focusing on storytelling and character, Phillips avoids the trap that many filmmakers and studios fall into. Hollywood's guilt-tripping tactic of framing criticisms as toxicity is lazy and ineffective. It misses the point entirely. Fans are not toxic, they have standards, and they want to feel respected by the stories they invest their time and money into. If anything, it's Hollywood's refusal to engage with its fan base on equal terms that's toxic. It gets worse for Joker 2. Variety reports that Joker could experience a significant 68% drop in its second weekend at the box office, making anywhere from $13 to $15 million. What's worse is another clown picture, Terrifier 3, could outgross Joker 2. Terrifier 3 is the follow-up to Terrifier 2, which surprised a lot of people, especially financially, because on a budget of $250,000, it brought in $15 million globally. That's why Art the Clown is in Call of Duty. With Terrifier 3 slated for a release on the 25th of this month and a larger budget of around $1 million, the film aims to build on the momentum of the previous installment, and it's likely that horror fans are willing to turn out in droves and make this $1 million film possibly the film that could beat the $200 million film this weekend. And if that's the case, Warner Brothers will be embarrassed. In the end, the failure of Joker 2 proves that audiences respond to quality, not guilt or blame. As long as the media continues to push the narrative of toxic fandom as a scapegoat for underwhelming films, they will continue to alienate the very people they need in order to succeed. And that will take money out of the pockets of the studios, the people that pay them for coverage. It's time for studios and the press to stop blaming fans for their failures and start delivering stories that respect the audience's intelligence. At the end of the day, the fans aren't toxic, we're just waiting for something worth watching. So folks, what do you think about the Todd Phillips toxic comments? Let me know down in the comments below. And also, let me know what you think of Joker if you've seen it. And one other thing, if you haven't watched it, tell me down in the comments below why. The real question stems from, why is Joker 2 a film where Hollywood will come out to tell the truth? Why is it acceptable for this film to fail because the fans didn't like it, but movies with minority leads or women or gay themes have to fail because of toxicity? They can all suck. They can all have a bad story. A bad story knows no gender, no orientation. A bad story is just a bad story, and you can't guilt people into this. That's the thing I want people to think about in this video. Why is it okay for Joker 2 to fail? Well, it deserves to fail, don't get me wrong. I didn't like it, you can hear my review for it. And the whole toxic fandom, the whole dog and pony show of all this crap, isn't really around for Joker, and I wonder why. Maybe it's only Disney movies that get this kind of defense. Well, it doesn't work for them either. So folks, if you want to hear my review, that is live on the channel, check out our comic book Stealing Solo because we respect your intelligence with a quality story, and join us in a few weeks for Wokebusters. But until then, folks, be smart, be safe, be cool, but always be excellent to each other. Stealing Solo asks the greatest what-if question of all time. What if a group of disgruntled Star Wars fans kidnap Harrison Ford and force him to remake Star Wars in their basement? That, and a whole lot more, is answered in Stealing Solo, a Captain's Parody. Stealing Solo has been called laugh out loud funny and the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs, and it's available now for a limited time only. Go to stealingsolo.com, which is powered by Shopify, so you get the reward-winning safety and security, and get yourselves a copy today. Once we sell through this limited backstock, I'm going back to the drawing board to bring you the sequel, which parodies Luke Skywalker's fall from grace, and finally the closing chapter, which I can't wait to get to, Frankenfisher, the Bride of Solo. And yes, it's exactly what you think it is. So folks, the only way to get that is go to stealingsolo.com right now, get yourselves a copy, and enjoy the greatest Star Wars parody since Spaceballs.